Graveyard Shift at Freddy's doesn't feel like a normal FNAF fan game, but instead almost as if I was playing through a lost media creepypasta in the best way possible. Ironic since the game technically is lost media due to the original Game Jolt page where it was once hosted being taken down due to some unpleasant drama, with the only way for you to even download the game now being various shady places, all of which would have your antivirus software going crazy no matter where you try to find it. Even with how potentially dangerous these links could have been for my computer, all I kept seeing within my comment sections constantly was to talk about this one game. So, I took the risk and decided to click on one of these links. I knew this game had so much hidden underneath it after just one night, with just the game over screen hiding away so much of that lore. Wait, what? What? Even after I finished it all, I just wanted more. The story was chilling when you took a deeper look into it. The gameplay had some of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen, and the animatronic designs were well inspired by the original cast. This game isn't shy to let you know that this was the entire reimagining of Scott Cawthon's games. This was some of the most fun and stress I've ever had while streaming a FNAF fan game on the channel, but it was well worth it in the end. So, let's take this dive into the disturbing world hidden within the Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. Before I start this video, I do want to say if you enjoy the channel, please do subscribe. It really helps a lot. I typically don't like asking, but I do one day want to get to 100k subs, but I can't do it without all of your help. Now, this game starts off with 6 whole pages of warnings, which included things like loud sounds and flashing lights, the usual, with the 5th page talking about how this game might sometimes have false flags with antiviruses since it is trying to use a ransomware aesthetic. It probably was a lot safer when the link to the original Game Jolt page was still a thing. Past that, getting to the menu shows not music, nor any familiar animatronics, but instead just a distorted logo with this gut-wrenching audio in the background, almost as if to tell you that you shouldn't be playing this game at all. Occasionally, warped images of the mascots do show up on screen that when frozen can be unforgettable. Instead of saying play or night 1, we simply have to click on endure, since that's what we will have to do for the following nights. Doing so takes us to our very first cutscene, talking about the local news about someone named Sam Rodriguez who has gone missing with no leads by the Denver Police Department. This man was a journalist for the TDR News Network who was working on a story about Colorado's infamous entertainment venue, Freddy Bear's Eatery and Fun. However, after the trip to the restaurant, he would just vanish and hasn't been seen ever since, still missing to this day. Already, the way this game presents itself is more akin to analog horror rather than actual game. Enough about the backstory, it's time for the very first shift. When entering, we hear the phone guy introducing us to the restaurant.
Good evening. Wanted to give you a call to help you get settled in, considering I heard you took the job. Well, to say your resume was less than impressive, the only reason you got this job was because under your cons you mentioned, and I quote, you couldn't sleep well at night. So I'm sure you'll fit right in. Anyways, let's get you acquainted with everything. The tablet you're probably holding, pull it up. Yep, she's a beauty all right. Rickety to say the least, but it works.
There's already a lot to talk about since if you're comfortable with the mechanics of other FNAF fan games, it most likely will be a problem here. The first time you open up the cameras on any night, you'll have to boot up for a few seconds using their Honey Soft home security system. With this old system, you cannot use the cameras in the traditional way where you get to choose where you want to go, but rather, you will constantly be cycling to the next one. The way it moves is always the same clockwise order that is presented, with there really only being 3 main cameras to focus on, with those being the playroom on cam 5, the hallway on cam 6, and the management office on cam 7. It is very important to remember that you cannot control the cameras you want to look at that much, especially if you need to switch to another quickly. Thankfully, we can speed up the timer that it takes to get to the next room by clicking the speed up option in the top corner or by pressing D on our keyboard. A much needed shortcut to help us save time. This one feature takes the one thing we were truly in control of for these types of games. The reason I enjoyed the original FNAF fan game so much is the fact that it played so much on our own helplessness to drive home that fear factor. Most horror games typically have you being able to run away, hide, or even fight back depending on the genre, but FNAF stuck you into a room with no way to run away nor any way to actually fight back. There's no weapons or safe spots to even go to, with only an office with 2 doors and a camera system right in front of you. Unless you were doing an extreme optimal way to play to beat a really hard difficulty, the camera system was the only thing that you could control to make you feel a little bit more safe, using it to track the animatronics in the game to plan your next move accordingly. However, here, we don't have that luxury. In fact, in later nights, this issue will be so apparent that it will cause much of the frustration within this game. You could kind of stall at the camera switching by putting it down for a few seconds and then bringing it back up in order to stay on the same camera, but that method can get pretty dangerous past night 4. If the cameras were already something to worry about, we also need to make sure we don't switch too often, or else the screen will start to become blurry to the point it becomes unrecognizable. The solution is simple, being able to click the router to turn it off, but when this is off, you can't use the cameras at all. So just wait a few seconds, then turn it back on, and you can get that crystal clear quality. Do it too slowly, and you might risk the chance of dying though. In front of us in the office is this door or window, which surprisingly doesn't take power. You have to manually drag it down in order to close it, which will cause this meter to slowly start falling down. If it reaches the bottom, the door will automatically open and become stuck for a few seconds, creating a window for anyone to come into your office freely. A surprisingly balanced way of ensuring we don't just keep the door closed all night. It does have this cute feature of having the restaurant's logo, which looks really familiar, but I genuinely cannot remember what it reminds me of. If you have any idea, leave a comment down below. There is a light switch that you can use to check if anyone's inside, but honestly, I almost never used it, even after beating the game. I'll show you why shortly, but it's honestly more effective just to ignore it completely. Before talking about the last core mechanic of the game, we should probably talk about the very first threat introduced on night 1. Bonnie, who now has an absolutely horrifying redesign. It's something so simple yet unsettling, which is only amplified by how he positions himself in the camera system, almost always covering his own face using his giant ears as if he's trying to hide himself, which is such a cool detail to add. This took a couple of attempts to understand, but the alarm system, which I thought would act like it would be in FNAF 3, where it would be used to drag animatronics towards a certain room away from you. However, you have to be very specific on when you use it, since if you use it too many times, all the animatronics will eventually just ignore it. If Bonnie is in a playroom, and only if he's standing in the doorway, not just the room, you will need to play the sound to make him go to the next camera, which is the hallway. You aren't done yet though, since he will try to get through the window in front of you. Even if you don't use the lights, you can still notice Bonnie's ear in the dark with his ears popping out. Though if you really want to, you can use a window light to see the animation of him trying to creep up on you. Simply close the door in his face and you'll be fine. The other location you could go through is by skipping the playroom altogether and just go into the hallway. He has to be standing in front of the door again for the alarm to work. After either of these attempts, if you're successful, he'll begin the loop and do it all over again. Bonnie's AI is very simple, but can be very dangerous if you're not careful, just because the playroom door has no other counterplay to it. If he slips past you and does manage to enter the door, it's an instant game over. There is thankfully a shortcut to use the alarm if you just press A on your keyboard to speed up your gameplay for later nights. Obviously, the first night was the easiest, so it only took me around, I would like to say 8 attempts. It might also be important to note that you can't ever see the time left normally, except for when you have the cameras up, which I kinda adore. I love whenever these kind of games try to add some level of realism into the world building and environment, especially from the player's perspective. It just adds to the immersion and makes the entire experience feel better and more terrifying. Once we do reach 6 AM, it starts a second cutscene. This one seems to be a conversation between two people who are Newsom, who is a yellow text, and Blue, who is unknown for now. Newsom notices that this place is clean, but the animatronics are starting to smell, which Blue needs to fix. What's that smell? I beg your pardon? That smell? Where's it coming from? Wait, did you hear that? The floor here, it's hollow. Oh, that's the cellar. It's just storage down there. Well, I'm going to need to see what's inside. May I? Yes, sure. Follow me. From what we could gather so far, this Newsom seems to be some sort of health inspector investigating the restaurant after some complaints. What happened to him after discovering that hidden underground cellar is currently unknown, which is where we start the next shift on night 2. The second shift starts with the phone guy just saying, haha, didn't worry about the potential danger, as a prank. Other than that, he doesn't really give us much information when it comes to the animatronic, nor anything related to the lore of this location for this night. This will be something I talk about quite a bit in more detail near the end of the video, but the way this game explains its mechanics is quite frustrating, to be honest. Moving on to the night, we get 2 new additions to the cast who are now active, Chica and Cream. Chica is easier to deal with out of the 2. She will ignore the alarm, so trying to waste time using it on her is completely useless. She kinda works like Foxy from FNAF 1 in a way. She'll aimlessly walk around the whole building, but eventually when the camera switches to show stage camera 1 or hallway camera 6, she immediately run to your office. As you could probably guess, with the cameras needing to cycle the entire building before getting to the places you need, you'll be seeing Chica quite a bit. When this happens, we'll have to use the window shutters in order to block her from attacking us. Also remembering not to use the lights if she's near it, since she will straight up attack us if she's in the hallway when we do. Out of all the animatronics, Chica is probably the easiest to deal with, since if you're just opening and closing the cameras, she will eventually show herself in the office and you'll have a fair amount of time to shut the door in her face. It's not Chica who is the problem introduced on this night. It's this cupcake, surprisingly. Cream Puff has 3 phases that we need to pay attention to. Thankfully, there is a sound cue to warn us when she is nearing by. How she attacks us is through the management office on cam 7. You'll see this small vent. The first sound cue is her crawling inside of it, which lets us know she's finally active. The second sound cue lets us know she's getting ready to come out. Unfortunately for us, once we hear the second one, there is no final one to let us know she's about to attack. Only when she's fully outside the vent and getting ready to attack us is when we can use the alarm to scare her off. Using the alarm too early in her first or second phase will do absolutely nothing. With 3 animatronics to keep track of for this night, it was quite difficult at first, especially with the lack of instructions to go by. However, understanding how these animatronics work and by knowing which cameras to focus on, this night wouldn't be that hard. Something I wish I could say about the following nights. When 6 AM finally hits, we are able to get the next pieces of dialogue. Entry 175, July 7th, 1974. Things aren't looking good for Freddy Bears right now. I told them countless times, I warned them what would happen if they leave, and yet they didn't listen. Last night, after closing, Wolfgang attempted to break out of the restaurant. Let's just say he didn't get far before collapsing in agony. Before opening, I found his remains, or at least what was left of them. Hopefully, he didn't make any noise that would alert nearby businesses. I cleaned up whatever piles of ash was left, threw it away as is. However, for the bones, I saved them up for closing, and then showed them to the others. They understand their place now. None of them can leave. Based on his dialogue, it does seem like one of the animatronics, Wolfgang, attempted to run away, but for some reason someone or something prevented him from doing so. It doesn't seem to have been a person, since all that was left from him was just ashes and bones, with the owner or who right now I'm assuming is the owner, just finding him in that state. He wasn't the one to directly cause it to happen. If her basing needs to be similar to the original FNAF game's lore, then this person most likely did take the lives of a few people and stuff them into these suits. For what reason and who these people were, we simply don't know. But it definitely feels a lot more supernatural and cruel, taunting them at the end by forcing them to see the bones of someone who attempted to escape. That would explain why we didn't see a character similar to Foxy within his game, even on the cameras, since by going off his name alone, Wolfgang was probably this game's version of Foxy. I guess we'll learn more about what happened later on. This night's phone call finally gives us some useful information, and that's to make sure the music box is always playing. Barry Bat is the newest addition to his fun cast and is stuck in Playroom, or Camera 5. This actually is a good thing since this is one of the rooms we do want to focus on because Bunny loves to come here. Maybe I just have a bad memory, but I do believe this is the first ever Bat animatronic I've ever seen in a FNAF fan game, so that's pretty cool. There is no complicated wind-up system or weird minigame that you have to do. All we need to do is make sure we click one button, which is to play music 1 at the top of the camera. Slowly throughout the night, this meter will fall down, and once it reaches 0, Barry will be able to move quickly out of her stage to come slowly to the back door of her office. Her mechanic is so simple that honestly, there really wasn't any need to focus on her, even on later nights, since we will always be coming back to this one area. It's kind of hard to forget to play the music when you pass by it every few seconds, though it is important to note that the music does switch off by a timer of around a minute and 30 seconds, so if you want to play perfectly, you could probably min-max a strategy based on that timer. Other than her, nothing else was new on this night, and in fact, if you got used to the mechanics of the other animatronics, then it was probably easier than night 2. Except, I kind of lied to you. There is one more secret animatronic that's extremely rare. They could only be found from nights 1 and 2. But the reason I'm bringing them up now is because this will be the very last night they'll be able to show up. That one animatronic is Yellow Bear, an obvious Golden Freddy reference, except this one takes the concept of the original and dials up the fear factor up to the maximum. If you're lucky enough to find him, he'll show up at the end of the hall before this happens. It's so unsettling how there's absolutely no sound or anything at all. Just silence. What's even more disturbing is if you noticed, a pair of human-looking eyes comes out of his sockets, with the last frame of the jump scare showing this. Maybe it's just me, but the silence during a jump scare like this just feels wrong. Like there should be a loud sound, but the silence really makes my heart beat faster for some reason. It's definitely one of the most disturbing jump scares in the entire game, and it's important to note that he's not in the hallway, but rather the bathroom. There is an even more disturbing version of him, which I'll mention much later on within this video. Moving forward leads us to this conversation, which might have been between the lawyers of Freddy Bears and one of the missing children's mothers. Miss Rodriguez, I assure you, no one at Freddy Bears is the cause of your son's disappearance. Cut the bullshit, Wells. You know damn well that something's going on in that crack house your client calls a restaurant. I'm telling you right now, Miss Doyle, your client's son did not disappear from Mr. Raglan's establishment. Sam Rodriguez was last seen around Freddy Bears. That already disproves your claim. Which doesn't exactly mean it's my client's fault. For all we know, he could have disappeared after you left. I know Mr. Raglan did it. Excuse me? Raglan's Eatery has a reputation for disappearing staff.
What? Now that's outrageous.
I know you know where my boy is. Miss Rodriguez, please calm down. She's right, Miss Rodriguez. My client can sue you. Your client kidnapped my boy. Whoa, hey now. Janice, please.
I just want to see my boy again.
I just want to see my boy again. It seems that this probably isn't the first time people have gone missing within a restaurant. From my old man understanding of the original FNAF lore, most of the characters that perished were directly taken by William Afton or directly because of him as children, except for maybe the scoop machine from Sister Location. It would be strange if the owner or whoever was responsible would target their own staff, since that would attract so much unwanted attention. If it is true, we may not know exactly how many people were taken then. Before, we could possibly just assume it's the same number of active animatronics near the end of the game, including Wolfgang. But perhaps there was a lot more than meets the eye. The wiki for this game describes this night as the first truly difficult night in the graveyard shift at Freddy's, which is funny considering I may have lost dozens of times just trying to get to it, though it's not exactly wrong either. Introducing the single most annoying character and mechanic I personally have ever had the pleasure playing against out of any FNAF fan game. This is Sheriff Slithers, a cute little snake that will make your game turn from a fun experience into a fast-paced rage simulator. Now, while switching to cameras, which at this point you'll have to do a lot of, especially to keep track of both Bonnie and Cream, you'll sometimes hear this sound effect. It sounds kind of like a rattlesnake. When this happens, it means that Slithers has entered a camera you are on, forcing you to put it down quickly. I would highly recommend not trying to find him on the cameras directly with your eyes, since he intentionally is hiding away in spots that are hard to see. This can be incredibly annoying since it doesn't allow you to freely navigate the cameras, well, as freely as you were able to previously. You could probably guess just how frustrating it can be when you could hear Cream getting active, the music box getting lower, and getting nervous about Bonnie creeping up on you at all the same time. Then, while you have to hurry up to switch the cameras to check on one of those very important locations, all you hear is a... In your panic and hyperfixation, you completely ignore it unintentionally, only to be met with a jump scare. It doesn't matter where in the restaurant you are looking at, as long as you switch the camera while he's on it, he'll always end your night. So make sure you close the camera, wait for the second ring to signal he left, and rush to check up on the others. There's a reason this was recognized as one of the first difficult nights. Breathe, slow down mentally, and you'll be able to get through it. Entry 806, April 8th, 2017. This is definitely the most information we get presented with. Someone has gone too far, thinking that their system would have gotten them. Something changed. It could be a sign from somewhere, but all they know is that they're getting the same nightmares again, as if they were the ones sitting in that ticket booth. Everything was the same, except for the creations. At least, they thought they were. It wasn't until they checked the camera in the playroom where the hatch opened up and Freddy Bear came out, but he looked different. Like he's changed and slowly wearing down, acting much more rabid than before, much more hungry. It ended the same way it ended for all those other poor souls, being dragged into the darkness. It's becoming clear that it's all coming to an end. I'll be talking about the lore that's going on in much more detail, since there's actually quite a bit going on. What I'll definitely let you know now is that whoever's speaking is most likely talking about us. We weren't supposed to last this long within this place. For whatever reason, us staying alive has been causing things to change. Whether it's for the better or for worse is not known. With the final phone call we get, certainly being the most threatening of them all.
You know, I never really know what happens now. I've never seen anyone make it this far, and... Why? Why didn't you leave? Was it the money? Or something else? The only way this ends is for you to die. Mr. Rodriguez, this is the last time we will be speaking to one another. May God have mercy on the both of us.
We finally discover who we are. Mr. Rodriguez, most likely the son of the woman who was once talking about our lost child in one of the previous nights. I'll be connecting the dots in much more detail soon, but for now, we need to finish what we started. When I state that this was the most difficult night out of any FNAF fan game, I truly mean it. And I beat quite a few, including the Return to Blighted Nights when it first came out. The main issue with this shift is due to the final animatronic introduced, Freddy Bear. He's essentially just a green version of our favorite mascot, except for his red eyes and sharpened claws. The reason why this night is so difficult is due to the way we need to prevent Freddy Bear from reaching our office. He only becomes active around a minute into the night where he walks off the stage. Once this happens, we need to keep the camera on him for as long as possible. You see, he can only move when we look away from him. Think of an hourglass counting down, and every time we're staring at him, it freezes. Every time he does move, he makes his infamous bear sound, indicating that he's leaving to the next camera, which adds to the stress knowing that he's progressing forward to your office, with almost nothing you could do to stop him. This would be such a simple and easy task to do, just staring at him on the camera, if not for the fact that we have 5 whole other animatronics we need to keep track of. So, how do we beat this night if we need to do all of that? It's pretty easy with the method that I just call the CRC method, which is what I've even used to help pass my college courses. Cry, repeat, cry. You may think I'm joking, but nope. The only way to truly beat this night would be to get used to the muscle memory needed. With everyone's aggression level just being turned up so high, it could be an absolute nightmare. Let's break it down to really understand just how unfair this game can feel during this only night. Let's remember, you cannot choose the camera you want to look at willingly. You have to go around in a circle and can only speed up the process with a button. But wait, you cannot speed it up too much or else you'll have to reset your router, which shuts off your camera for a few seconds. And you cannot speed through the cameras too fast because you might not hear Sheriff Slithers and instantly lose the night. Now, we understand just how frustrating the camera system can be due to these two mechanics. How are we supposed to keep the cameras locked on Freddy if the camera automatically switches? If you put down the camera for a bit, then bring it up, it'll slightly reset the timer, allowing you to stare a little bit longer, which unfortunately you can't do that much since Cream, who will thankfully hear, shuffling around her first 2 stages, will need us to get to her to use the alarm. Let's not forget about Bonnie, who does not have any kind of sound cues at all and will be able to show up at 2 different locations where we'll need the alarms, with one of those locations needing us to get off the camera to shut off the door. Of course, shutting the camera from Cream to Freddy has a convenient gap where Chica shows up, since most of the time we'll make it to that part of the system. She will immediately run to our office, forcing us to close the door on her, with, of course, Barry having her music box need to be reset, but honestly, with us needing to track Bonnie and Cream, she'll just be an afterthought. You really don't need to care about her since it'll be very rare where you're not near the playroom 99% of the time. As much as I would love to scream and shout at the top of my lungs that this game is absolutely trash and dog water with the worst mechanics imaginable, it's fair. That's going to sound strange with how much I've been complaining about the difficulty throughout the last 2 nights, but genuinely speaking, looking at the mechanics and seeing each of the purposes, it most definitely is a hard game, don't get me wrong, but it truly is fair. Bonnie and Cream gives us a purpose to look at the cameras constantly, forcing us to cycle through in a circle. It isn't a mistake either when you look at the positioning of each animatronic. Bonnie is in the playroom or in the hallway, with the very next camera being Cream right after as well. These 3 cameras are the most important and critical, I would say, in the entire game. I'll even describe them to be the end of the system since that's what we need to be constantly thinking about, getting back to them if we ever swap. Then, there's that convenient gap I was talking about before, which forces us to use the door against Chica when we try to get back from Cream since she'll be on cooldown, back to Bonnie, who most of the time will also be on cooldown. As much as you can get frustrated, these 2 are typically very much active at the same time, so one cycle around will lead to at least getting rid of 3 of the animatronics being dealt with. That includes Chica, by the way. As the animatronics get more active, we'll need to be faster with the cameras, which is where the recharge system and the snake come into play. forcing you to play by their rules. We have to intentionally slow down or lose the game. It instills this type of panic into you that's hard to replicate otherwise. You know you just heard the cupcake shuffling around, but at the same time, you just heard a rattlesnake. As you put the camera down, waiting for him to leave, you know you still need to rush things to get all the way back to the closet. It's absolutely disgusting how powerless you feel just because of one damn snake, but wow does it feel powerful. I do want to touch up on Barry since she's been kind of just in the background whenever I mention her. To be honest, her mechanic kind of just feels like it was thrown in order to just put an extra animatronic. I do like how she's in the playroom, the same place as Bonnie, so you don't really need to panic that much, but when it comes to the fluidity of the other animatronics, it doesn't really fit in my opinion. In my own gameplay, she's always just forgettable, and even if she was removed, I don't think my gameplay would really change all that much. It's where we make it to Freddy, who completely changes how the game works. Like I said, you're forced to loop in a circle whenever you deal with Cream or Bonnie. Before, you could just do the same cycle of playroom, hallway, closet. Now, you'll be forced to keep the camera on Freddy for as long as possible. Go as fast as you could go on these other cameras to make it back where Freddy is. Surprisingly, he moves quickly. And I mean quickly. It feels incredibly unforgiving at points too. Sometimes I would focus too much on Freddy and still feel as though he moves way too fast for me to make it to 6 a.m. However, looking at all these mechanics together, you definitely won't be thinking that any of them is completely unfair. Borderline hair ripping and stressful? Sure. But not unfair. The sound design really does make it feel worse though. Not in a completely bad way, but just adds to the stress levels by 100-fold, especially with the music being so intense during these nights. They do mesh well and create a system that makes you feel like you have to train yourself, pushing your reaction time to the limit in order to finally beat it. If we persevere long enough for us to finally reach that beautiful, beautiful 6 a.m. time, this happens. Freddy Bear turns into Dreddy Bear, opening up the door to our office and revealing his new grotesque look, saying, "Time's up," with the final image shown being a news article talking about how a local reporter vanishes with Freddy Bear's under investigation. Actually reading the article reveals that there's been a reported loud scream coming from the building, causing the police to rush into the scene, only to find a window shutter, which we've been using as a door, smashed into bits with our office showing signs of a struggle. We find out that her full name is Sam Rodriguez, and we were also a reporter for the TDR News Network, working on an undercover story about this place. Our disappearance comes only 4 weeks after the health inspector Gibson Newsom, with the final piece of information being the owner's name, Steve Raglan. Along with a beautiful credit sequence, we finally finished this game. Except we didn't. Oh, I hate saying this. I really wish I didn't say this. This was the hardest challenge I think I've ever done, and it's the reason why this video even took so long to make. There is a post-game called Grave Danger Mode. I am not joking. I wish I was joking. You have to essentially beat the entire game all over again with 3 lives. No, that's not an exaggeration. You have to play almost perfectly to beat this. My biggest struggle was always making it to night 5 with sometimes all 3 lives, but eventually losing them all. It took me an extra 2 weeks and a half just to be able to do this for you, but in the end, it was worth it. The ending was basically the same, but with a different and much darker news article, letting out the truth about this game. Hundreds found underneath the restaurant. This operation has been going on for much longer and with a much larger scale than I and anyone else could have probably predicted. Detectives were able to uncover a hatch hidden underneath the floorboards, inside having a secret cellar filled with dozens, if not hundreds, of them decaying, some to the point of even bones, even being described as almost like a graveyard, with the freshest remains being of us, the player, Sam Rodriguez. Of course, after discovering such a horrific scene, the police would make the owner, Steve Raglan, as the main suspect, though when they tried to track him down, they could only find his home, a mess, with a shattered window and a smashed open closet. They suspected that he had a mental breakdown before running away. Wow. Before moving on to piece everything together for the lore piece, I'll tell you about a secret that is pretty easy to get actually, if you could bear listening to the menu audio for around 5 to 10 minutes. The game takes control of your computer and does this. Alright, how long have we been here? Someone make a timer actually. Wait, actually, let me make a timer myself. I'm going on my phone real quick, and I'm making a timer for 3 minutes. Wait, it changed. It changed. It changed. The sound changed. Let me turn it up a little bit for you guys. The sound changed. You hear that, right? It's different. It's different. What was that? What is that? What? What just happened? It closed and then opened. What? What is this? Image? Open file? What is this? It seems like a basement. What am I looking at? Wait, am I able to like edit this? Hold up. If I go here, okay. What is going on? There's a cellar in the playroom. The previous night guards? Dead bodies in cellar. Congrats on beating a night. Thank you so much, Timothy. Such a curiosity thing. Okay, so it closed. You know what's scary? It closed the game and opened up a tab all by itself. Okay, wait. So we're here, right? Okay, wait. Is there... Sometimes there's like cool little like background. So let me just... Maybe a dodge tool. Let's do a dodge first. You know? Is there anything like hidden with if I up the brightness? No. What about sponge tool? No. I don't see anything different. I'm not sure. Is there like anything hidden inside of it, or is it just this? Does anyone know? Sharpen maybe? I don't think so. The sounds of one of the animatronics groaning can be heard before the game closes itself and shows one image on a new link. I love this feature since it makes it seem as if the game takes control of your computer to show you some disturbing scene, which is supposed to be the cellar that was discovered by the police. We actually finally did it. We beat the game or were able to find out so much about the lore hidden underneath. So let's actually piece everything together. In the very beginning, Steve Raglan opened up a restaurant simply called Freddy Bear's Eatery and Fun around 1972. I'm going to pick that year since in the original Game Jolt page it says it's been over 45 years and the events of the game currently are taking place in 2017. There's two theories I have as to exactly what happened. The one I see a lot of people believing in is whatever Freddy Bear is most likely some sort of demon. I'm unsure if he intentionally summoned him to make some sort of deal, but let's assume he did for now. With a failing restaurant and bills piling up, the stress led him to places that he should have never been. The reason I believe that this deal took place before July 1974 is because Wolfgang attempted to break out of the restaurant after it closed on that day, but somehow turned into ash and bone. As horrible as Steven is, Jetty Bear is the one who appears to be the true culprit of these deaths. I'm assuming the deal was a continuous source of human lives to consume for a successful business. It's probably that same supernatural power that he had that also allowed for this whole system to stay active for so long. The main thing that confused me was, who were the animatronics then? Other demons possessing their forms? But then, why did Wolfgang try to escape? And why did Steven use his ashes and bones to try to scare the others? It can be inferred that demons most definitely are stronger than humans. I mean, just look at what Jetty Bear did to that door in the office, which is why I'm making an extension to my previous theory, with there only being one demon, Jetty Bear. The others are humans stuck in the suits, forced to capture Night Guard or anyone they can. Kind of like a sick game of cat and mouse, being used for Jetty Bear's own amusement. It would explain why they wouldn't want to be there, and why Steven used Wolfgang's remains to scare the others. They aren't monsters per se, just forced to be one because the true two others. After Wolfgang's disappearance in 1974, Barry the Bat would be created to replace him. Throughout the years, they most likely would pick off whoever they can discreetly. If we're basing this on the human suit theory, then most likely they were given some sort of quota. Give me a certain amount of humans a year, or else you're the one who's going to be eaten next. Of course, Steven wouldn't be free from this threat either. Far from it. In fact, I'll even go one step further and say he's the one who somehow forced their souls to stay in these suits to help him fill that quota, so he himself wouldn't have to suffer the consequences. That's pretty much all we could assume for now, based on the limited information we have about how this all started. Years go by since the 1970s, where people go missing each year here and there, only to be fed to Jetty Bear. It seems easy enough. Sometimes as a kid nowhere near his parents, other times it's a night guard. No matter what, Steven fills his quota of humans fed to him. Now, to piece everything that happened afterwards within the game's time period. March 2017, a health inspector named Gibson Newsom was looking around with Steven until he unfortunately found out about the secret cellar. Going into it, he discovers this horrific scene underneath and was fed to Jetty Bear to keep him silent. It's until a reporter decided to go undercover from TDR News Network called Sam Rodriguez, who is the person we play as. Assuming this is supposed to be like some sort of game to Freddy Bear, he gives at least these night guards some sort of chance to live for a certain amount of time. He can come whenever he wants given the ending scene, but chooses to toy with us first. On April 8th, 2017, Steven Raglan is very anxious from how long we've decided to survive as a night guard. Most likely was after our 4th shift, confirming that they did have some sort of system to keep things quote unquote running, with him having nightmares or visions about him being attacked in the office, almost as if he was foreshadowing our own character's final moments. It's only after we're finally done with our 5th shift that we're taken forcibly and the police raid the scene thanks to our screams. Most likely before the reports of what was discovered underneath, an interrogation between our mother, Miss Rodriguez, Steven Raglan, and what I'm assuming is his lawyer happened. At first, I thought these two were married and Sam was going undercover to find information about their son who went missing. Then I completely remembered these games almost never have a timeline that's in order. Case in point, the prologue and the very first cutscene describes what happens after the game ends. So this actually means the main character's mother was trying to find out what happened to her son. Eventually, they do discover the cellar, but Steven is nowhere to be found. The police do make theories that he's on the run, but given how violent Jetty Bear has gotten, he most likely was eaten. The same way he forced all those other innocent people before him. Okay. We finally got most things. I hopefully didn't miss anything important lore-wise about this game. It definitely was a lot darker than I would have ever thought going into it, but the news article after the grave danger mode hit me like whiplash. After everything, that isn't the end. Not yet. As you know, this game has been deleted off GameJolt, but that doesn't mean it's the end of this game nor its series. Not at all. Graveyard Shift at Freddy's 2.0 is being released, which from what I could tell from the screenshots is an updated version of the original with new content and slightly changed mechanics. I'm not sure if they're going to overhaul the story or anything else since it's still in development. It definitely looks like it's going to be taking the concept of the original and dialing up everything by a lot, which I'm definitely excited for. I personally don't care much about FNAF drama because for some reason every FNAF fan game creator seems to be into it, like Emil Mako for some reason. I mean, for example, what did he do? The creator of the Finance Academy series allegedly, legally I have to say that so I don't get sued, allegedly littered in public after curfew. Jokes aside, unless it's a serious topic like grooming or hating Markiplier, I try to ignore it. There's a video about the drama that I personally didn't watch since I need constant stimulation to concentrate, like Subway Surfers on the background, but if you're interested, it's posted publicly on the new GameJolt page for it. Other than that, we finished everything. The lore was definitely a lot more than I expected from a game like this, but I definitely wish it was more fleshed out or had more information since a lot of what I made was simply my own theories as to what happened. Maybe the second game will add a lot more or completely change it, so who knows. Overall, it was a pretty fun game that definitely felt like it was one of the more unique FNAF fan game experiences that I've ever played. I wish there was more, but unfortunately, after going through the endless pain for about 3 weeks, thank you Grave Danger Mode, there was a gap left in my heart craving more. If you know any other FNAF fan games that I didn't play yet, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end of the video. I truly appreciate every single one of you. I'm grateful for the ones who stayed even while I was along for so long. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Leave another comment about what you love, hated, or something you wish the game did differently. There's always something you can talk about below. In the meantime, I've been talking for a long time, and I need a nap. Until next time, my friends.